Deep beneath the grounds of Frogmore in Windsor lies one of the most private royal burial places in Britain. It is the final resting place of Queen Victoria and her husband Prince Albert, and unlike famous royal tombs that tourists can walk past in places such as Westminster Abbey or St George's Chapel, Queen Victoria's burial vault is almost completely closed to the public. Most people will never even come close to entering it. In fact, ordinary visitors are effectively banned from the vault altogether. The reason is partly because of security, partly because of preservation, and partly because the burial place was designed to be private from the very beginning. Queen Victoria did not want her tomb to become a crowded public attraction. She wanted it to be a place that was peaceful and personal, where she could remain beside Prince Albert forever. The story of the vault begins with one of the greatest tragedies of Victoria's life. In 1861, Prince Albert died unexpectedly at the age of 42. His death devastated the Queen, and Victoria was so overwhelmed with grief that she entered a long period of mourning that shaped the rest of her reign. She wore black clothing for decades and rarely appeared in public for many years. Albert's death changed her emotionally and politically, and many people at the time even feared the monarchy itself was weakening because the Queen had become so withdrawn. Victoria quickly decided that Albert deserved a magnificent memorial, and she chose the grounds of Frogmore House near to Windsor Castle as the location for a royal mausoleum. Frogmore was already a deeply personal place for the royal family, and it was quiet, secluded, and surrounded by gardens. Unlike the crowded atmosphere of central London, Frogmore offered peace and privacy. Construction of the royal mausoleum then began in the 1860s. The building itself was enormous and richly decorated. It was inspired by Italian and Romanesque styles and filled with marble, sculptures, paintings, and religious imagery. At its centre stood the great tomb of Victoria and Albert, and the couple were represented in white marble, lying sides by side. The monument was designed to symbolise eternal unity in death. When Prince Albert's body was placed there in 1862, Queen Victoria already knew she herself would one day be buried beside him. She personally supervised many of the plans for the mausoleum and even gave instructions about her own future funeral. She treated the mausoleum not simply as a tomb, but as a sacred private memorial to her marriage. This is one major reason why the public is banned from the burial vault today. It was never intended to be a tourist attraction. While medieval kings and queens were often buried in large public churches where crowds constantly passed through, Victoria's mausoleum was deliberately separated from public life. It was a deeply emotional place connected to private grief. Another reason for the restrictions is the delicate condition of the building itself. Over the years, the mausoleum suffered serious structural problems. Damp and water damage became major issues. Moisture began affecting the walls, floors, and decorative features inside the building. And because of this, access became increasingly limited, even for experts and royal staff. For many years, the mausoleum was closed almost entirely because repairs were needed. Conservation teams worried that large numbers of visitors would make the problems worse. Human breath, body heat, dirt, and moisture can slowly damage historic interiors. In ancient tombs and burial chambers around the world, too many visitors have often accelerated decay. The British royal household became extremely cautious about allowing people inside. The tomb itself is also incredibly valuable. The marble sculptures, decorations, and artwork inside are historically important and extremely expensive. Security, therefore, plays a major role in the ban. Royal burial sites are sensitive locations. The bodies of monarchs are not simply historical remains, they are still treated with dignity and respected by the royal household. Britain has experienced cases in history where royal tombs were damaged, robbed, or disturbed. During the English Civil War in the 17th century, several royal graves were opened or looted. Even famous figures buried in churches have sometimes had their tombs vandalised over the centuries. And because of this long history, the monarchy takes burial security very seriously. There is also another uncomfortable truth. Public fascination with royal death can become extreme. Many people are fascinated by coffins, skeletons, vaults, and decaying royal remains. Curiosity about what is hidden underground has always existed. The royal household understands this, and limiting access helps prevent the mausoleum becoming the centre of morbid tourism or sensationalism. This issue became even more important during the Victorian period itself. The 19th century had a strange relationship with death. Mourning culture became elaborate and highly emotional. People collected photographs of dead relatives, visited cemeteries as leisure sites, and became fascinated by funeral rituals. Queen Victoria herself helped shape much of this mourning culture after Albert's death, yet, despite the public obsession with death, Victoria wanted strict dignity surrounding Albert's memory. The mausoleum represented love, loss, religion, and monarchy combined together. Allowing crowds to wander through the burial chamber would have undermined the private atmosphere that she so wanted. When Queen Victoria died in 1901, her body was eventually placed beside Albert inside the mausoleum. Her funeral was one of the largest royal ceremonies Britain had ever seen. Huge crowds gathered across the country to mourn the Queen, who had ruled for more than 60 years. However, although the public witnessed the grand funeral procession, almost nobody saw the burial itself. Victoria had left highly detailed instructions for her burial. She requested personal objects to be placed inside of her coffin, including items connected to Prince Albert, and in some ways, the burial was surprisingly intimate and emotional for such a powerful monarch. Even in death, she wanted to remain close to her husband, rather than become a distant public symbol. The burial chamber itself lies beneath the main mausoleum structure. Heavy stone, marble, and brickwork surround the area. The atmosphere inside is dark, silent, and solemn. Unlike brightly lit royal chapels filled with tourists, the vault feels separated from ordinary life, and this isolation is part of its purpose. Over time, the secrecy surrounding the mausoleum only increased public curiosity. People began wondering what the vault looked like inside, and some imagined rows of coffins hidden underground. Others imagined forgotten treasures or elaborate Victorian funeral decorations. Because the public rarely sees photographs of the interior, myths and rumours have naturally developed. In reality, the mausoleum is less about mystery and more about memory. It was built to preserve the emotional world of Queen Victoria and Prince Albert. The building reflects Victoria's personal grief more than royal power. Every sculpture, inscription, and decorative feature was chosen carefully to honour Albert's memory. Today, the royal family still treats Frogmore as an important private site. Access to the grounds is already limited compared with many other royal locations. The burial vault itself is even more restricted, and only selected staff, conservators and clergy, and members of the royal household are usually permitted access. Even historians and researchers rarely enter the vault. In many cases, experts studying royal history must rely on old descriptions of architectural records or limited photographs rather than direct access. This level of secrecy sometimes frustrates historians, but preservation and security are considered more important. The ban also reflects a wider royal tradition. Many royal burial areas are restricted to the public. Parts of the royal vault beneath St George's Chapel are closed off. Certain sections of royal crypts in Europe are also inaccessible. Monarchies often see burial places as sacred family spaces rather than museums. There is another practical reason. Ordinary people are banned from Queen Victoria's burial vault. The mausoleum was simply not designed to handle modern tourism. Narrow spaces, delicate flooring, old ventilation systems, and fragile decorations all create risks. Thousands of yearly visitors would place enormous strain on the structure. Conservation experts today face a difficult balance. They want to preserve important history whilst also protecting fragile sites from damage. Across the world, famous tombs have suffered because of overcrowding. Ancient Egyptian tomb paintings have faded because of humidity from tourists. Historic floors have worn down under millions of footsteps. Restricting access is often the only way to ensure survival. Queen Victoria's mausoleum is therefore protected, almost like a time capsule. By limiting visitors, the royal household preserves the atmosphere that Victoria herself wanted. The silence, the privacy, and the dignity remain largely untouched. In the end, you are banned from Queen Victoria's burial vault because it was never meant for the public in the first place. It was built out of grief, out of love, and personal devotion after the death of Prince Albert. It remains one of the most private royal burial places in Britain. Concerns about security, conservation, dignity, and structural damage have only strengthened the restrictions over time. For most people, the vault will always remain hidden behind locked doors beneath the quiet grounds of Frogmore. Yet perhaps the secrecy is exactly what Queen Victoria would have wanted. Even after death, she wished to rest peacefully beside Albert, away from the noise of the outside world, inside a tomb created for no spectacle, but for memory. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like and subscribe, and once again, thank you so much for watching.